Welcome to New Day Foundation for Families virtual workshop series. I'm Kim Adams. This workshop will help give you the tools and resources we all need to live well. It's information that will breathe life and hope into challenging situations. And while we did design it with cancer patients in mind, we think this information will be useful to everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's get started. All right, let's get started. Hello, everyone. I'm Kim Adams. Welcome to New Day Foundation for Families' first virtual workshop. This is going to be a series of videos that we're creating and webinars to really help support not just the cancer community, but to support everyone, because right now we are all going through a tough time and we want to give you tools and resources to just live a better life. For those of you that aren't familiar with New Day is a leader in the cancer community, and really our goal and what we're dedicated to is creating a world where no one has to face the financial or the emotional burden of cancer alone. So we work with various hospitals and cancer centers to provide support to patients. We pay their bills. We prevent people from losing their homes. We have a grocery program. If you'd like to learn more about New Day, or if you're not familiar with New Day, go to foundationforfamilies.org. I'm at the New Day office in Rochester, Michigan. And behind me, this is the Wall of Hope. And what you see, those little squares behind me, those by the end of the year will be filled with all of the families that we've helped this year. And let me just turn it there. You can kind of see some of the families that we've already helped, and this wall will be filled by the end of the year. Some of you in Metro Detroit might know me from Channel 7 or Channel 4, or maybe my radio days, but I am also now the fundraising and development executive here at New Day Foundation for Families. As a breast cancer survivor, I just really wanted to become a part of this team and really support patients that are in active cancer treatment, because I know firsthand what it's like to not only go through cancer, but as a single mom of 5, to also go through the financial burden that comes along with that diagnosis. We have such a great workshop for you today. This is for caregivers, but it's also for cancer patients and their families, or maybe you're just stressed out and you need a little break. We have those resources for you as well. And I'm so excited about our first guest. Andrea Marcellus is a 25-year fitness expert. She's an author. She's joining us all the way from Los Angeles, California, and she is just amazing. I did another event with her a few weeks ago and just instantly fell in love with Andrea, because here's what she does. She helps people dig out from that to-do list. And I love the way she says this. She says, it's not a to-do list, turn it into a what do I want to do list. I love that so much. So welcome, Andrea.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to see you again. And I am so excited to help this community today who really needs it. Caregivers, as we know, are pushed to the edge. And, it's my passion to help busy, overwhelmed people fit fitness and wellness into their lives. And caregivers are at the top of that list. So this is exciting for me.
Okay, so what are you going to do to kind of get us all ready? Ready for this webinar, because some of us need to kind of switch gears from maybe caregiving in the morning. So help us do that.
Okay, and this is actually the perfect circumstance to understand what I'm talking about. So here's the thing, when you're stressed out, you have this amygdala in your brain. It's the fear and anxiety center in your brain, and that gets all lit up, and it sends out adrenaline and cortisol, which don't help us. Adrenaline makes us kind of jumpy, and we make snap decisions that might not be great for the long term, or we're just irritable. And the cortisol slows down your metabolism, which I don't need to explain to anybody here. We know that's not helpful. So what we want to do is quickly get into the parts of our brain that are about imagination, possibility, good things happening, problem solving. And the way we can do that is just with some simple movement connected to breath. So just like you're going to reframe your brain to get in this place to receive all the information Lynn and Kim have for you right now, this is what you can do in your life anytime you just need a boost of energy and to reframe into a more positive place. Are we ready? So right there in your chairs, let's just sit on the front of your chair, and you're going to feel your feet firmly in the ground. You are grounded. All is well right now. There's nothing to do, nowhere to go. Take your hands back behind you with your fingertips facing forward. And all we're going to do is push the chair away and pull our heart toward the sun. Breathe. Inhale. Exhale, release. Let your elbows bend a little bit and relax. And again, inhale. This is the top energizing move I want you to remember. Exhale. You're going to feel yourself changing already, just right now. Inhale. And you want to make sure you keep your neck long, so don't let your head go back too much. We don't want to swinch the back of the neck. And then one more time. Inhale and exhale. If you remember nothing else from this movement pattern, remember that one right here. Reach up with your right hand, and I want you to feel like you're dangling, and it's going to just open this entire side of your body. Breathe into your rib cage, create space. Inhale. Exhale, let that go. Let's switch the other side. So you're hanging, you're dangling this rib cage. We're creating all this space between the bottom rib and the top of our hip bone. Breathe. Throw some air in there. Air is energy. Exhale. Good. Let's move that. So it's going to be inhale and exhale. Now push the floor away with your feet, and you're going to lighten the pressure of your spine on that chair. And we're lightening our load here physically, and that will translate to a mental lightening of our load. Okay, right here, I want you to come up off your chair just a few inches. So stand up if you have to, and then come back down. So you're hovering just above your chair. It's going to look like this. This is chair pose from yoga. Now, hold here and just breathe. Here's what we're doing. We're not just energizing. I know you feel those legs working. We feel these postural muscles in the back, which you really need to work every day because a lot of you are lifting people and helping to move them. But also you feel how these muscles are demanding a ton of oxygen right now. Oxygen is energy. It is flowing to every muscle in your body. It is also flowing to your brain. And now let's just come up and move that. So we're going to take, this is what I call a chair pose jack. You drop as low as you can, keeping your chest high. This is your second best move to generate energy, strengthen your entire body, and reframe your brain. Why is it reframing your brain? Because stress is stress. So when we put ourselves in these challenging positions, and we're going to hold one more time. Here we go. Hold. Okay. So if you just breathe through this moment, just keep breathing. Don't let your face do anything. Don't respond. You're accepting this discomfort. You know you're strong enough. You're finding your edge. You're wondering when I'm going to stop talking. You're wishing I would. Please let me out of this pose. But guess what? You can handle it. You can totally handle it. And on top of that, you are training your brain not to over-respond to this physical stress. And what that means is, by doing this a couple minutes a day, you will train your brain not to over-respond to the circumstantial and mental stress in your life. Hold here. Okay. Come on down. Hard part of the class is over. Okay. Last thing. Let's just open up and swing it open, and then come back and give yourself a hug. Open your arms back behind your head, and then give it a hug. And the reason we're opening this upper body is by opening the chest, you actually release the back of the neck and the shoulders, the area you wish somebody would come rub all the time. So when you don't have someone to take care of you and your neck is bothering you, here's your next best move. Okay, now do you feel that? Do you feel
it? I feel it definitely.
So that took 2 seconds. It was nothing. You're not a big sweaty mess, but I promise you, you actually just worked every muscle in your entire body. And don't you just kind of mentally feel that, like, you feel happy for all that oxygen flowing through you?
Yes, any exercise I can do in a chair, Andrea, is my kind of fitness. But no, I can definitely feel it. And certainly when you said the neck, that's where a lot of us, including myself, hold that tension. So that's a good move to just release that tension. So we appreciate you so much. And Andrea has a really cool app, and she has a deal for our viewers as well. So tell us about that, Andrea.
Yeah, so on my app, it's called And Life. My name's Andrea, and/life. It's in iTunes, but don't go get it there. We're going to have a code for you. We'll send you an email, or you can find me on Andrea Marcellus on Instagram, or And Life by Andrea Marcellus on Facebook, or just find my website and just message me that you're a caregiver. And I'm going to send you a coupon for 90 days free in the app. And if you need longer, just message me. I'm here to help. But the point is, there are really short workouts on, just like what I did now on this app. There's foundational strength workouts. There's all sorts of stuff that you can actually fit into the very crowded life you're living right now to help you give yourself this energy boost right now. And and it's a whole lifestyle. So there's reminders to stand. There's reminders to drink water you can set. There's recipes that take 3 minutes, and they're all superfoods, so you can make sure you get your nutrition without really thinking about it. So go check it out. Find me if you need help. I'm totally available.
Well, we appreciate your time so much. And again, one of the things I really love, Andrea, and what draws me to you is that you make things very simple. It's baby steps. We didn't have to get into our fitness gear, go to the gym, use this equipment. These are simple things because caregivers, let's face it, and cancer patients, we're stressed out, we're exhausted. And so you do simple things that everyone can do. Look, we just fit that in what, 5 or 10 minutes, and everyone feels better. So we thank you so much. For those watching, we will email you. If you registered for this webinar, we will email you that code so that you can get Andrea's program, as she said, which is so generous, Andrea. Thank you. 90 days for free. So we appreciate you so much. Enjoy sunny California.
We'll do that, and I'll see you guys again next time.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I want to mention also that we really want to thank Comerica Bank for sponsoring this virtual web series. We appreciate them so much and what they do for New Day Foundation, and in return, what they do for the cancer community. So we appreciate Comerica Bank very, very much. Okay. Now we call it the meat and potatoes of this virtual web series. We have Lynn Jarrett, and Lynn has been a caregiver coach for 15 years. She really helps burnt out caregivers restore their strength so they can care well for themselves and their loved ones and lead a healthier, more balanced life. She's helped thousands of people reach their maximum potential. And Lynn also has a backstory and a reason why she has come to us at New Day, because she's a mom to Hannah, and Hannah unfortunately lost her battle to a heart disease, and at the age of 15. And so Lynn not only understands as an expert what it's like to be a caregiver, but she also understands what it's like to be a caregiver, and she understands the grief part of caregiving as well. Next week, I'll tease ahead, we do have a second part of this series, which will be on PTSD and grief. And you can see beautiful Hannah there. Lynn, thank you so much for joining us. And that's actually the first time I've seen Hannah, and boy, does she look like her mama. So thank you again for being with us. And let's kick it off. Let's get into, helping our community take a little bit better care of themselves as caregivers.
Yes, for sure. Thank you so much for that introduction, Kim. And I just want to say, friends, it is so great to be here with you today. And Andrea, thank you for that energizing little exercise that we could do. I feel energized already to be able to be my best in being here with all of you today. So caregiving or self-care is a really important aspect in my life. And we knew when Hannah was born, she required 3 open heart surgeries by the time she was 2. On top of caring for my 2 older daughters and launching my coaching business at the time, I was a little stressed out. There's a lot going on. And so what I realized is how important self-care is and always will be to me, because I needed to learn how to do that. And what I was finding is when I was working with my clients and the success that they were having with some of the simplest coaching tools that I was providing for them, I'm like, okay, well, I need to practice what I preach and incorporate that self-care as well. So that's why self-care is such an important topic for me, because it's something, even though Hannah is no longer with me and I don't have to take care of her, there are so many things that I have implemented that are a natural part of my life on a daily basis. So let's jump right in. And so I want to start off by saying, self-care is often an elusive term. What does that even mean? And so I thought we'd start with this little picture here that says to take care of yourself. And so I want to start with a simple picture and ask, what do you see in this picture? What do you notice in this picture? And feel free to jot your ideas and thoughts in the chat, and let's just discuss this picture and how this picture can represent self-care.
And Andrea, I want to jump in, or I'm sorry, Lynn, I want to jump in real quick here because for those of you that are only seeing a portion of that picture, you need to go up to the top of your screen and it will say view options and just click fit to window. That way you can see all of Lynn's graphics and all of her pages here full screen. So if you're not seeing a little pot with being watered in a flower and seeing the whole thing, again, just go view options at the very top of your screen and click on fit to window.
Awesome. Yeah. So any thoughts on what you see in the picture?
Lynn, I'm getting people who are saying, Jenny says she sees joy and contentment. Lisa, you can still grow something beautiful even when it's cloudy out. Oh, I love that one.
Mm-hmm.
Paula says she sees water, sun, nourishing the flower.
Yes.
That.
Oh, love all of
Oh, here's a good one. Growth. Cheryl sees growth.
Amen. And that is so perfect. Those are great descriptions of what self-care really is. It's growth, it's nourishment, it's amidst the clouds and the dark times that there is still that opportunity for nourishment, for finding joy and contentment, because joy and contentment is inward, not outward. Despite the situation or whatever, there you can be content. So excellent input, ladies. I really appreciate that. Okay, so that's just a little simple picture of what self-care can look like. But let's actually look at the definition of what self-care is. And so self-care is anything you do to take care of yourself so you can stay physically, mentally, socially, and spiritually well. And if I go back to when Hannah was very small and having all of her surgeries, and between all of the times in between her surgeries, it was constant visits to the doctor and prepping her and getting her ready for her next surgery and everything that was demanded of me. I realized that I was physically and I was just exhausted a lot of the time. But what was really lacking for me is what happens is when we are caregiving, we can focus so inward on the problems and trying to take care of the person that we need to take care of that we often forget ourselves. And so for me, one of the things I realized is that I was so caught up in my caregiving world all the time. I wasn't doing anything to breathe and to realize that there was life outside of my caregiving role. And so I had to be really intentional of making sure I was connecting with friends. And for me, my spiritual side is very important to me. My faith is very important. And so, I would develop my community within my church. So I was tackling my social and spiritual wellness at the same time. So that's kind of, it's the overall physical, mental, social, and spiritual.
And what are some examples of self-care? What if, to be honest, for me, becoming a caretaker for my mom after we lost my dad, plus juggling work and kids, I've almost forgotten what I enjoy. Like, what about for people that they're so caught up in caregiving that they don't even know, what does it mean, self-care? What are some examples of things that people can do to foster self-care specifically?
Yes, and we're going to get that in some of the tips that we're going to cover in a few minutes. But, some examples could be just something, what's physically that you could see yourself doing? Is it going for a walk? Is it, did you used to play a sport? Do you like to bike ride or something like that? Something that gets that physical energy out. Mentally, it could be, for some, they seek out counseling, or they seek out a support group for caregivers that are often associated with, the health system that you're involved in and so forth. There's a lot of things there socially to be able to connect with other caregivers, to be able to find, connect with friends or coworkers, whatever that looks like. And then if the spiritual side is a part for you, just connecting into the opportunity of a faith community for yourself and asking for prayer requests. When Hannah was in the hospital, her last 3 weeks, our church just scooped right in and provided meals, provided walking our dog, taking care of our older daughters who were at home and not at the hospital all the time. So there's ways that people can come around and surround you and give you that support when you're looking for it. So it's a matter of finding, we alluded to those things that bring you joy. And you might think, well, nothing brings me joy. I'm so worn down. But to think about, you know what? I do like when I can sit down and have 15 minutes in the morning all to myself with a cup of coffee and just silence. That could be the way to really get you energized for that. So those are just some ideas, just a few ideas of what self-care is. But let's talk about how self-care is actually possible. And I want to say, and I loved what Andrea said, everything's connected, lots of brain activity and so forth. And so you're my peep, Andrea, because it's like, yeah, everything has to involve the mind here. So it starts with a healthier, more balanced mindset. And I want to start with the example of, when you're traveling on an airplane and they talk about the oxygen mask, what is their instruction? They always say, secure your own mask first before assisting others. Same thing, same principle in self-care. You absolutely need to make sure you are breathing and not passed out so that you can be present, not only for yourself, but for others. So crucial. And another analogy that I love to use is if you think about this beautiful China teacup, all right, it's very fragile. But oftentimes as caregivers, we are trying to do our best from an empty cup. And so my question to you is to ask yourself, is your cup full or is it empty? And if it's empty, are you trying to do more with absolutely nothing left to give? And that's what we're going to talk about here, is how to fill this cup back up, get that oxygen mask on so that you can be your optimal best, not only for others, but more so for yourself. All right, and then the other concept I want to talk about, and this is really eye-opening for a lot of clients when I talk about the difference between being self-centered versus selfish. All right, so self-centered really means when you are focused on yourself, where you are manipulating people and situations for your own benefit. You really are not considering other people in your equation. Whereas selfish is when you are acknowledging that you have needs too. Let me say that again. Selfish means that you have needs too, all right? Just like everyone you're taking care of, it's recognizing your own self in your own life's equation. So being selfish is to recognize that you have needs that need to be met at certain times, okay? So when you're able, this is part of the mindset shift, to realize that to focus on yourself is crucial. It is crucial in order to do that. All right, so show of hands. How many of you feel guilty if you were to take time for yourself? Raise your hand if that's even a possibility. Okay, raise your hands high, like raise them high, like you just don't care. Yes, that is absolutely. You can feel guilty for even thinking about taking time for yourself, and that's a way to really de-energize yourself when you assume you cannot think of yourself in your own life's equation. So we're going to talk about how to ditch the guilt. Is anyone interested in that? Let's get rid of that guilt once and for all. All right, so let's start with step one in getting rid of the guilt. First of all, recognize your need for self-care. Friends, you have to understand that self-care, it's a necessity, not an option. And so oftentimes everyone will take that moment and say, oh, I just, something's come up and I just can't do it. And you will always come up with an excuse not to attend to yourself. Can I just say that with an amen? You will always come up with an excuse not to focus on yourself. So with this first step, if you're recognizing that self-care is a necessity and not an option, you're halfway there. You're halfway there, friends. So that's the first step. And then the second step, really great thing you can do is let your loved one know why it's important for all of you for you to practice self-care. And you find this in business terms and all of that as well. But know your why. Why are you doing it? Why are you taking time for yourself? If you can be very clear of your why, you'll be able to communicate that and make sure you do communicate that with your loved one and with everyone in your sphere of influence so that they understand that it's really to benefit all of you. Because, you hear the term, if mama ain't happy, nobody's happy. So if the caregiver ain't happy, nobody's going to be happy. It's going to feel more like such a burden and oppressive instead of feeling this release, like, there is this such thing as balance. And that is possible, friends. It is possible. So know your why and communicate that with your loved ones, and especially the one that you are taking care of. And then the third step is to getting rid of guilt is to set boundaries. And this is like, what's a boundary? Okay. So boundary is just very simply, it's where you begin and another person ends. And in caregiving, it is so easy to get caught up and to lose yourself completely in taking care of someone else because you are addressing their needs all the time. And so you can almost erase yourself if you're not careful. But boundaries are really important. And boundaries, when you think of that, for some people, they think, oh, well, that's putting up a wall. And that's not the case at all. Boundaries is about a releasing. It's a freedom within that. And, studies show that when you give people parameters, when you give them what it is that they need to understand, when they understand those parameters, then everyone knows and has the freedom within those parameters to know what's expected. All right. So boundaries is really important. So let me talk about that there's two different types of boundaries, all right? There's physical and there's emotional boundaries. And so let me just give you a quick example of a physical boundary, especially if the one you're taking care of is in your home. A physical boundary could be simply finding a place where you can have a little bit of sanctuary, a little bit of alone time within your home. And communicating to everyone in the home that when that door is closed, you are not to be disturbed. All right. And so for my girls in growing up, they understood that if I was in my bedroom and the door was closed and it was during the day, they knew not to bother me. But when the door was open, they'd be able to, they could come in and access me if they needed that. But so finding that physical boundary to give you space, really, really important, and designate that space where you can breathe, really important. Okay. And then an emotional boundary. Okay, this is going to be really an interesting concept, because for some, they don't know that they can say the word no. No, saying no is being able to set an emotional boundary. And so I just want to say that no is not a swear word. Okay, friends? So repeat after me. No is not a swear word.
No, it's
No
not
is not
a
a
swear
swear
word.
word. Okay. All
But
right.
it feels like it though, Lynn. I mean, I understand
Yeah.
that you do need to set physical and emotional boundaries. But the
Mhm.
reality for some of our viewers right now is that they know that, first of all, time may be short.
Yeah.
And they want to do everything they can to support the person that they're caregiving for.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about the physical for a minute, because for those who if you're in a hospital setting,
Yeah.
how do you set those physical boundaries when it's hard leaving someone that is sick and that needs you and wants you there?
Mhm.
How do you set that physical boundary?
That's a really great question. And I know for Hannah, when it was her last 3 weeks, every single day was incredibly intense.
Mhm.
And so oftentimes what I would do is I would go and walk out in the hall, or I would go down to the cafeteria. And we always had visitors coming. So there were visitors that I could kind of unload on, go in the waiting room and talk to them. But physically taking yourself out of the room could be really helpful. In Hannah's case, she was just surrounded by lots of different machines. And I could still hear those machines in my mind.
Mhm.
And so getting away and getting out of that noise is really important. If you don't feel like you really can leave for a moment, you could take Andrea's app. You can take some other apps, put in your earplugs, and just listen to some calming music or something a podcast or something like that could be really helpful to just help you breathe within those circumstances. But it's crucial. And if you can't be with the person, I know with the pandemic and everything is limited in terms of visitations and all that kind of stuff, is to just realize that there's so much that you can do. Call in when you can, do the videos when you can, but then when you're not with your loved one, to make sure that even though you're feeling guilty, to
Mhm.
still say, okay, I need to take a breather for myself.
Yeah.
And so I know it's really, really hard, but just really crucial to be able to take that time.
Well, it doesn't have to be for a long time either. I know when my son was in the PICU at Children's Hospital, I sat and slept on a chair for days and days and days and wouldn't leave his room. I was terrified. And then one day I finally went down to the subway that was in the hospital, and I almost felt guilty because it felt so good. Like the world was continuing and there were people, but I went back to the room and I felt better. I just needed, and it wasn't a long time. It was literally 15 minutes.
Yeah.
But it was okay. Just, you don't have to go for hours and hours. Even 10 or 15 minutes can really make a difference.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Change of physical scenery can make a big difference and re-energize you. Really crucial. Yeah.
Okay. What else you got for us, Lynn?
Okay. So here's an action step. So get out your pens or whatever, and to think about, we've just covered these 3 steps to removing guilt. Recognizing that self-care is a need, know your why, and set your boundaries. Okay. So which one of these do you intend to implement immediately? Feel free to jot that in the chat, and would love to hear from you which one do you plan on implementing immediately?
Bethany says, know your why. And I think you explained that as it's just knowing and accepting, that you need. I think 1 and 2 really go together, because we just have to recognize that we do need self-care, and then it's okay. For me, it's the guilt is awful. It's really difficult for me because I want to please everyone. But at the end of the day, if I'm burned out and I make myself sick, which happens sometimes with caregivers as well, you're not taking care of yourself, you get sick as well. And so I've tried really hard. I'm really excited to see, though, Cheryl and Julia both said setting boundaries. Liz Rowe, learn to say no. Liz, I'm with you. Learning to say no, it's so hard. But I've learned, and I think, really honestly, the pandemic, I think, has all given us an excuse to say no. And I hope that that's one thing that actually continues after the pandemic is over, because we all need to just set our boundaries and say no. No, I can't do that right now. What else? Jenny, she also says, learn to say no. So I think they all kind of go together, honestly, Lynn. I think you need to do all three, and hopefully people can start doing that today.
Yeah, for sure. And, I was just talking to a gal the other day where she's like, Lynn, your emails are fantastic. They're so helpful, but I realize I need your self-care toolkit. And because she has been going on a few weeks of being sick, physically sick, and she's been attending to both of her parents, her elderly parents, for the last few years. And she's made herself sick as a result. And so taking that time for herself, recognizing that need, she's finally saying, okay, I can't do this anymore. I need to say no. And so, friends, remember, no is not a swear word. And that's important. It's great for helping set boundaries too.
Great.
All right, so we've talked about some of these steps to ditching the guilt. So now we're going to talk about some tips for self-care. All right. And so we're going to go back to talking about boundaries for just a second, because here's what happens as caregivers. We look at everything as urgent and important at all times, right? So we're constantly revved. We're constantly thinking and doing, and we don't know how to settle down. And so here's a suggestion I want to make, is that when you're setting boundaries, is to actually prioritize what is urgent and important. Okay. So when something comes up, to be able to prioritize, is this something that needs my attention within the hour? If it doesn't, then it goes on a priority list. All right. Well, this is something that I can get done by the end of the day, or as soon as I'm done with this meeting, I can make a phone call to the hospital or call in about my loved one's treatment or something like that. But it's recognizing that not everything is urgent and important, because what happens then is your loved one is going to assume that you're going to jump in right at a given notice. And that is not realistic. You cannot keep that pace at all times. All right.
So Lynn, give us an example of something that is, because everything does feel urgent when you're a caregiver.
Sure.
So give us an example of something that is urgent and something that probably can wait. You might think it's urgent, but it's really not.
Right. Okay. So let's take the example of you get a call from the hospital saying we need to change a medication, and because we're getting ready to do this procedure or something like that. Unless it's an emergency from the nurse or from the doctor, to be able to call them back when you have that free moment. So if it's 2 hours later, that's okay. If it's just something, so it's kind of prioritizing and saying, okay, and maybe that's talking and communicating with the hospital or with the treatment center and saying, okay, what are the absolutes? What are, urgent matters that need my urgent attention? And then what are things that if I get to you within a few hours, that's okay. So set up that game plan with the treatment, the treatment team. And so that can give you a peace of mind and them a peace of mind in knowing of what the parameters are for that.
Right. So if you get that call at work and they say mom needs her medication changed, your typical response is, oh my gosh, okay, I got to leave work. I got to go. Mom needs her medication changed.
Yeah.
But really that's something that you could say, great, I get off work in 2 hours. I'll come, we'll talk about changing it.
Yeah.
And that is something, even though it feels like it's okay, she needs a new medication, I got to go.
Yeah.
Really that can wait a couple hours until you finish work.
Yeah. And again, if you're getting that call from the hospital or treatment or whatever, just say, is this urgent where you need,
Right.
you're obviously going to know if it's an emergency or something like that, but oftentimes it's not.
Okay.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay. And then, all right. So here's another tip. So I'm sure everyone's got their phones handy. So what I'd like you to do is grab your phone and open it up to your calendar. And I want you to think about scheduling some me time right now. So look at this next week here and look at a time, even if it's just 15 minutes, friends, just a time where you can get a breather. And I want you to put in your name and block off that time. Because guess what? You're not going to do it if you don't plan it. You'll let everything else rule your calendar. And if you don't take time to put yourself in there, again, you're not going to put yourself in there. And you're
Okay, I just scheduled myself, this will sound silly, but to pull weeds, which it relaxes me more than a pedicure. I want to, once I get started, then I can't stop though. That's the problem. But I want in the comments, if people could just put in there, what is an example of me time for you? Because again, I think a lot of us have kind of forgotten what is me time. And you also, well, I can't go get my hair done right now. What if something happens while I'm there? But there are things you can do if you're a caregiver at someone's home or you're living with someone and they're to a point where you really don't want to leave. Again, go out and pull some weeds or take a walk around the block. You don't have to go far, but I'd love to hear. I need some ideas myself other than pulling weeds. Like Nancy says, exercise. Judy, this is really good. Judy said, schedule time to meet with yourself and be alone in your thoughts. And sometimes, that's all we need too. Exercise, read a good book. Oh, Lisa says, soaking in a tub with a book and not my phone. Yes, amen to that. Colleen says, when in the hospital caregiving for my son, it was take a shower, go to cafeteria, phone a friend, take a walk. That take a shower, Colleen, I totally get that because, that's something that I didn't take time to do, admittedly, when my son was critical, even to walk down the hall. But obviously I had to at some point, and it made such a difference, just taking a shower real quick.
Yeah.
Cheryl, it's as simple as putting my phone away for a few hours. That's a good one for me too, Cheryl, really just disconnecting. And that's part of those boundaries too, that you talked about, Lynn, just getting away, putting away your phone and maybe just sitting and I have trouble being still.
Yeah.
Maybe that's something we all need to do too, is just to be still for a minute. But that never works because then all my thoughts come in my head. I think I'll stick to pulling weeds, Lynn.
Well, absolutely. Because again, we are in that hyper vigilant mode when we are caregiving, especially when our loved one is in the hospital. I remember when Hannah was in her last 3 weeks and we were living hour by hour many times. And so the way that we had it set up is my husband stayed at the Ronald McDonald House on the floor there. And I would come home every evening to attend to our other daughters. But what I would do in the morning, I would get up earlier than usual and I would work out for 20 minutes. And the whole time I was working out, I was thinking I should be at the I should be at the hospital and all of that. Number one, I needed to quit shooting on myself. You know, I should be there. But I
Oh,
realized
shooting.
should. Yes, I said should, not the other word. Yes, there you go. And
Shoulding. I should do this. I should do that. Just
thank
clarifying
you.
for you.
Yes, yes, because should equals shame,
Yeah.
right? And if we're shaming ourselves, forget self-care. It goes out the window totally. And so by doing that, I needed that physical outlet for myself in order to walk in and make it into the hospital at the time when the doctors were doing their morning rounds. So I needed to be mentally prepared. And the way I did that was the physical activity first, so that I could go with the challenges of the day and what was going on. So that was really, really important. So it's finding what's going to work for you, and come up with a list. You know, if you've got 15 minutes scheduled for yourself, develop that list of things that you would enjoy doing that would really be good for you.
Excellent.
Yeah. All right. So a third tip is when you become easily irritated, when you find yourself irritated or impatient with yourself or others, guess what, friends? It is time for a break. All right. And when you're easily irritated and impatient, that's actually a PTSD symptom. And we're going to talk about that next week with grief and PTSD. But it should be a signal to you to say, oh, okay, time for a break, time for me to leave the room, the hospital room, go take a walk, even if it's outside, and doing a lap around the hallway. Get yourself out of the circumstances and give yourself that mental and physical break. Really important. All right, so here's another idea for you. Now I want you to think about taking inventory of what you need right now. Is it something physical, emotional, social, or spiritual? Which one of those do you need? So here's your action step. I want you to identify your top need. Is it physical, emotional, social, or spiritual? And just in the chat, would love to hear from you. Which one is your top need right now? And what's your action step for meeting that need? So any ideas that you would have there?
I think a lot of people are saying social. That seems to be the number one thing that a lot of people, and that, I think that's part caregiving, part pandemic, part everything right now. But the social and just relying on friends and being with people outside of that caregiving circle.
Yeah, yeah. So social is really important. I know for me with this pandemic, not having that social interaction, it's greatly impacted my mental health. So this is where you can really be intentional and text that friend that you know is going to make you laugh, or just someone that you don't have to talk about anything caregiving. You can just escape into enjoying someone else's company. If a spouse or a partner, go out on a date, have some time outside of your caregiving demands. Really, just really important of finding that balance for yourself. Okay, so as we wrap up, just want to mention to you, I have what's called Lynn's Coaching Corner, and it's my weekly email that provides encouragement, tips, and strategies to help you successfully navigate the stress of caregiving. And I believe we're putting the link in the chat. So if you'd like to receive just some weekly encouragement and support and some tips, you can sign up right there for you. And then the other thing is, I mentioned earlier, I was talking with a gal earlier this week about my self-care toolkit. And what it is, it's a 15-day email program to help you ditch the caregiver guilt and stress. So we take more of a deep dive into the boundaries and how to set those. Look at your energy drainers. Look at what life balance could actually look like for you. And so you can learn more about that with the link that's going to be in the chat as well. But just the different results that my clients have gotten as a result have been just really tremendous and transformative. It's not just about change, it's about transformation. And I mentioned to you how from the very beginning, I had to learn what self-care is. So now everything that I learned in crisis and all of that with Hannah, I now institute, it's a part of my daily life, and I can recognize and be aware when I am in need of self-care. And awareness always brings change. It always brings transformation. And so by you being here today, you are raising your level of awareness in order to make that happen.
Well, we thank you so much, Lynn, for your time. And again, I think you come to us not only as an expert in the counseling and in the therapy sense, but again, also you've been there and you understand. And when you're going through a crisis, it really helps to have that empathy. So we appreciate you so much. Again, we've put all the links in the chat, but if you don't get it there, certainly we are going to email everyone after this with Andrea's information, with Lynn's information, and ways to get in touch with them. But we thank everyone so much for joining us. If you'd like to learn more about New Day and what we do here, please go to foundationforfamilies.org. There are many ways that you can help right now. And we just appreciate all of you so much. Thank you for watching. We have next week at the same time, 11 o'clock on April 21st, and we will continue this chat about PTSD and grief with Lynn. So thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, everyone, for watching. This video will be available to view after. We'll put it up on social media and also our website. We're going to edit it a bit and get that up as well. So thank you so much, and we hopefully will see you next week. Bye.
Bye.